Remember, knowledge is not free. You have to pay attention.
You're watching Past the Wire TV.
Big horse, but light on his feet. And he's always showed up and been consistent and been right there with some of the top horses in training. In the Bluegrass Stakes, he showed his determination and his raw ability.
It's over! Zandon wins the Toyota Bluegrass!
I feel breeders will be really blown away by what a striking, outstanding looking horse he is.
Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com. Good morning. Buongiorno.
Good morning, John. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good. Doing good. We're on the other side of the street this morning, on the backside of the main track at Saratoga, with one of the more iconic backdrops here. Figured we'd switch it up this week.
I could see it. I could see the horses breezing, galloping, and I could see Saratoga in the background.
Yeah, there's just a couple of horses for Chad Brown just came by a few minutes ago. Looks like Danny Gargan, whose barn is just over there. Looks like he had a few coming across the track as well. And Barkley Tag, the ageless Barkley Tag, was on horseback, trotting around a little bit with a couple of his horses this morning too.
You know, it's funny. A lot of people don't realize this, but Barkley Tag goes back so far. He was Frank Whiteley's assistant trainer when Frank Whiteley trained Ruffian.
Wow.
I mean, that's way back there. So
Yeah.
Barkley's been around a while,
Yeah.
and shows no signs of slowing down, does he?
No, he looked great. He looked great.
Yeah.
Had the helmet on, had the jacket on, and was on horseback and looking young. So good for him.
Good for him, absolutely. So before we get into the nuts and bolts, how's the atmosphere up at Saratoga?
The buzz is coming. I think, like I said last week, still a little quiet last week, and I think a lot of that had to do with them still racing down at Aqueduct. But now that Aqueduct wrapped up on Memorial Day, there's a lot more people on the roads. There's a lot more people on the Oklahoma track across the street the couple mornings that I was over there earlier this week. So the buzz is around for sure. And
a credit to Naira for getting those Thursday and Friday cards drawn and out early.
Yeah, that's always been a criticism of sort of the industry as a whole. You've got these big stakes races on a Saturday, for example, and we're not getting the PPs until 8-9 o'clock on a Wednesday night. So I think we saw the Derby kind of take the lead on that this year and put the stuff out about a week ahead of time. So Sunday morning now we've got Thursdays and Fridays cards already drawn. PPs are out. I saw the morning lines were out for Thursday last night. They're gonna be drawing most of the Belmont Stakes card today, and then they're doing the Belmont and the Met Mile tomorrow. So I'll be curious to see later on this afternoon and evening. Perhaps we get to see at least who is in the other fields. Obviously we won't have the past performances out yet, but hopefully we get a little bit of insight as to who drew into a lot of those other graded stakes for next Saturday.
And I'm sure somebody will put up a graphic or something.
Yeah.
With all things. And drawing the races early and getting those PPs out early, it doesn't only help from the racetracks, from the bettors, at least from a wagering standpoint, and time to prepare. It also helps kind of build the excitement and build the momentum into some of these races. Because you looked at some of these races, and we can touch base on a couple of them, but can't wait to see them. You know what I mean? So it kind of builds up that momentum, so to speak.
Yeah, and we'll touch on this a little bit more later on, but we were talking earlier in the week, and even the conversation started a couple of weeks ago when Naira put out that press release, giving the owner and trainer bonuses for entries in the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival, and perhaps reading into it a bit too much. We kind of thought that maybe that was a sign that they were anticipating a little bit of a tough time filling some of these stakes races, but from what we can see on Thursday and Friday, full competitive fields. So
I agree.
Exciting for sure.
I agree, and I hope that carries throughout the weekend. And it looks like there's a good chance it might. One of my main, I don't want to say worries, because I'll deal with it either way, but I was concerned that we may have some 3, 4, 5 horse fields on that big day, and we may get 1 or 2 of them. It's just unavoidable now, but it looks like we'll have our share of full fields as well.
Yeah, I think I was most interested in the Acorn and how that drew, just because that strikes me as one of the more lightly attended fields in the last couple of years, and that drew a field of 9, I think. So
Right.
a competitive field of 9. So hopefully that's a sign of things to come for Saturday's card, which has I think 8 stakes races, and 5 or 6 of them are grade 1s.
Yeah, interesting, because now Ken McPeak and Brian Hernandez will be going for an Oaks Derby double. Now they'll go for a Acorn Belmont double, which would be quite an addition to anybody's resume in the same year.
Yeah, I think if you don't have Trainer of the Year award already locked up, winning the Oaks and Derby, an Acorn Belmont double would certainly plant your flag in the ground.
I would tend to agree, but history has often shown that a lot of the Eclipse voters, no matter what anybody accomplishes during the year, just vote for whoever has won the most money.
Yeah, that's true.
So I mean, there certainly could have been a case made for Javier Castellano a couple of years ago when he won the Derby with Mage, and I don't know if he got any votes at all.
Yeah.
So. But I agree. I think you're definitely planting a flag that you belong in the conversation. If I think you already done it if you win the Oaks and Derby alone.
Yeah.
But adding the Acorn and the Belmont would be quite the feat. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. And Torpedo Anna will be, probably a strong favorite in the Acorn.
I would think so. But we'll see. I thought that field was pretty competitive. So, if she's not ready to put forth a similar effort that she did in the Oaks, then perhaps she might be a little bit vulnerable. But we can talk about that as Friday gets closer.
Absolutely, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there a saying or a connotation with Saratoga and big favorites or something like that over the years?
Yeah, right. Isn't it the
graveyard
of favorites? Yeah.
And that goes back to Upset beating Man of War. So a slew of heavy favorites, no pun intended with Seattle Slew, but a slew of them have gone down up at the Spa. So there's no free squares in Saratoga.
Yep. Yeah. So a pretty busy week since last Sunday. I think a lot of questions got answered for us. We saw Fierceness is skipping the Belmont and is going to point towards the Haskell down at Monmouth.
We kind of both saw that coming, and alluded to it. I wasn't surprised at all. And I'll go a step further. I won't be surprised if he doesn't wind up in the Haskell.
Yeah, I agree, right? A lot of the quotes from Todd were that he needs more time. He needs more time, and which is fine. But what are you're just going to go from the Derby right to the Haskell? I would you'd figure he would need something in between. Um, but we also see too a lot of years horses in the Haskell are, sometimes horses that are just, maturing as they get through the summer that, might not necessarily have been ready and mature enough along the Triple Crown trail. So they get down to Monmouth and they run a career best effort. So, it's certainly possible that if he does land in there without a prep race, that other horses have just progressed a little bit better and a little bit stronger than he has through the early part of the first half of his 3-year-old season.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I don't think you can make the argument that he's not mature or seasoned enough, and it would definitely be concerning to me that such a lightly raced horse would need more time at this point. You know what I mean? Unless there was an issue, and we know he's got that issue with his hooves that require equilux, and who knows if that got worse or better, or what the situation with that may be. A lot of people talk about transparency in horse racing, but those are the kind of things that are never going to be truly transparent to the casual fan and even to the better, because you're talking stud deals and all kinds of business and financial ramifications where that stuff's just not going to be publicly disclosed, and openly talked about, no matter how much we cry for transparency, because too much money involved, so
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like they're dealing with this issue with the NBA this season, and for a good chunk of the last couple of years, where injuries aren't reported. Guys are just randomly taking nights off, and it's kind of throwing some of the betting markets all out of whack, and people were kind of complaining about that. So similar issues.
NFL, Joe Burrow in that
Yeah,
game.
right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And
And I don't think anybody was better at than the Patriots and Bill Belichick about being evasive
yeah,
regarding injuries and disclosing them, and somewhat staying within the rules of the NFL, but telling you absolutely nothing.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I agree. I think we're probably not getting the whole story, but
Part
I
of the
think
business. It's part of the business. It really is. May not be the best thing, but it's just it is what it is.
yeah,
You want to talk about what we learned this week?
yeah, yeah. So I
Okay.
think I think what we were just touching on, with fierceness is probably the main news, even though we were both pretty predictive of it last week. Batten Down also is gonna skip the Belmont. There's a little bit of buzz around this horse going into last weekend, and they seem to be pretty high on him, but going to skip the Belmont. And then also, like we talked about earlier, Torpedo Anna is going to go in the Acorn. And again, I think your your interview with Brian Hernandez last week, basically confirmed this before they actually confirmed this, when he said that they're both not, Torpedo Anna and Mystic Dan aren't going to both run in
Same race, right?
in the Belmont Stakes. And if they don't run in the Belmont Stakes, where's Mystic Dan going to run? So I think that that interview,
Right.
which if you haven't checked it out yet on the Pass the Wire TV YouTube channel where you're watching this, so check that out. But I think a good job of reporting and questioning from you, John, to essentially get that information before anybody else.
Appreciate that. Now, there's some more information that we may or may not have before everybody else, but there is definitely a little bit of a rumor and a buzz going around, and I did hear it from what I would call an extremely reliable source, but they were very open in saying they didn't know 100%, but they did believe that uh, Tuscan Gold was now probable for the Belmont, and that if he did run, Joel was going to ride him.
Yeah, I was looking at the workout times from yesterday, and it looked like Tuscan Gold had a pretty solid half-mile workout, and 48 and change. And if you recall, about 2 weeks ago now, when we spoke to Chad Brown about Tuscan Gold coming out of the Preakness, and he said he was still considering him for the Belmont based off of how he worked, and he planned to give him just this one workout from the Preakness into the Belmont. And by all accounts, it went well enough, and we should see Tuscan Gold in the Belmont Stakes starting gate when they draw that race tomorrow. So yeah, like you said, a couple of birdies saying that Joel Rosario might be on Tuscan Gold, which would be interesting, and I think it's worth talking about a little bit, because we did see Tyler Gaffleone was on Sierra Leone in the Derby. They're pulling him off of there in exchange for Flavien Prat. Tyler rode Tuscan Gold in the Preakness, so I guess when we heard that rider switch news on Sierra Leone, you would have just assumed that Tyler would have maintained the mount on Tuscan Gold, and now he's not, which is a bit peculiar in my view. And I was looking through the PPs for Thursday and Friday, and I think there were at least a couple, probably a little less than a handful, but at least a couple of instances where Tyler is still riding for Chad. So not I don't know if we want to put the tinfoil hats on and dive into jockey trainer relationships, but certainly an interesting move, I think, if this is in fact true, with Joel Rosario riding Tuscan Gold in the Belmont.
Well, yeah, agree, but I'll say this: Chad and some of the other really top shelf trainers wind up in difficult situations like this and have to kind of do what's best for each individual horse. I mean, in a perfect world, Chad would probably not want to run Tuscan Gold against Sierra Leone, but there's just so many big spots, and you have a responsibility to your owners and the horse to run them in the best spot where they have a chance. Chad, we know, takes that extremely seriously and spots his horses very, very, very well. So, the first thing I would say is, if he does run Tuscan Gold, it's not a lack of confidence in Sierra Leone or anything like that at all. It really strictly revolves around Tuscan Gold deserving a shot to step up and run in that race. And sometimes with horses, you just want to change things up. You know what I mean? You just want to make a little bit of a change. You just want to do something a little bit different, or just think another rider might, ride a horse differently. And I think we talked about that with Sierra Leone. And I have no fault on Tyler and the way he's ridden that horse, but I do think that the switch to Prat might change things up, whereas Prat might move him earlier, Prat might move him later, Prat might try and go up the inside instead of going around everybody. I mean, just a little thing like that, can change things. And the same thing with Tuscan Gold. Joel is certainly more experienced rider on the big stage than Tyler. I'm not going to say either is better than the other. I think they're both top riders. But you know, I hate to see a rider lose a horse in a big race, and especially if they're coming off a win. But this is not a horse that's coming off a win, so it's unfortunately part of the game.
Yeah, yeah, and we might not ever, know the true story, or what the dynamics are. Like we saw a couple years ago with Javier Castellano and Mage and the other horse that won the Belmont, that I can't remember his name last year. Arcangelo, yeah. We saw that the connections wanted a 2-race commitment from him, and he couldn't do that, and he was off of Mage and on Arcangelo in those races in the Travers, I think, is where he kind of faced that dilemma. So I think a lot of moving parts to a lot of these sort of rider assignments, but perhaps the jockey change and everything kind of perhaps move Sierra Leone up a little bit. Not that I think in either of our opinions is not that there's much more to go for that horse. I think he's probably the most likely winner of the Belmont Stakes, at least looking at it right now.
I agree, and I'll say this to bettors who tend to read or try and read more into those things than maybe they should. My advice would be don't. You don't know the backstory. You don't know, like you said, sometimes a trainer wants a 2 or 3 race commitment and they can't get it. I mean, I know a jockey that lost a Derby winner because he was out partying the night before and didn't show up to work the horse, and the guy who worked the horse got the mount, and the horse won the Kentucky Derby. It happens. There are all kinds of things like that happened. And funny thing is, the guy who trained the horse is the guy that we spoke about earlier today, Barkley Tagg. So you don't know the backstory of things like that, and unless the horse that you like is getting a significant downgrade in riders, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? Just handicap the race with the rider that's on it, and don't don't let that really affect you unless it's a significant downgrade of a rider, because then it could obviously make a difference, or a significant upgrade. Then maybe it might boost your confidence. But in these kind of cases, I really wouldn't read much into it from a weight standpoint.
Sticking with Sierra Leone, an equipment change, they're swapping out the bit for him leading into the Belmont, and again, kind of like reading too much into it, like we touched on last week with equipment changes heading into a big race. Some quotes from Chad Brown yesterday or earlier this week talking about it, and he really just kind of downplayed the whole thing. I think he essentially said, it's only getting attention because it's the Belmont, but just swapping things out in the bit just to try to get him to focus a little bit more, and not lug in like he has been. So couple that with Flavien Prat in the irons, potential for him to put together his best, most cleanest race. But of course, we'll find out what happens next week.
I agree, and that's again something I wouldn't read too much into. On the Belmont Thoroughgraph show that I did the other day, which turned out really, really well. One of the comments that somebody put in there that I happened to see and I don't think that I addressed it in the comments because I just didn't. But somebody said something that to the effect of that, oh, Chad took Tyler off for his own mistake, not changing the bit on this horse sooner. If you think that you can train a horse and know that better than Chad, then you should be doing it. You know what I mean? Because if you're that good, you should be out there winning grade run races and making millions of dollars and playing on the big stage. But a lot of times when you have a horse who's running well, okay, but showing a little bad habit like that, you don't want to be so fast to make any change. If it's not broke, you don't fix it. And Sierra Leone wasn't exactly underperforming. I mean, he won the Bluegrass. He wasn't underperforming because of that. Did it cost him the Derby? Yeah, maybe, but he certainly could have won it with a little better trip and a little different, kind of situation anyway. So you don't really jump to change things like that. And then when you do it when you think the time is right, when you're the trainer. And I mean, nobody knows that horse better than Chad. And like he said, if it wasn't the Belmont, it wouldn't be getting any attention, and it's not a big deal. May help, may not make much of a difference. It's certainly not going to hurt, I don't think. So he had his reasons for not doing it sooner. I'm not going to question a guy that wins races at the rate that Chad Brown does and the kind of races that Chad does. And I think he's going to make a lot of noise throughout the Belmont Festival. So
does that even a bit change like that? Does that even show up anywhere in the past performances? I don't think it does.
No, it
so
doesn't.
The only people talking about it are us, the people who are the couple of thousand people that are going to watch this, and a couple thousand people that are reading the Daily Racing Form and Blood Horse and whatever else, and
right.
90% of the people betting on the race will probably have no clue.
That's correct. That is correct. Last but not least, we have Belmont kind of substituting resilience for batting down.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to ask you about this because I thought Resilience had a good run in the Derby. I thought probably performed a bit better than a lot of people would have expected. And then kind of like a late add to the conversation around the Belmont Stakes. Do you make anything of that? Is that some vote of confidence that, hey, this horse came out of the Derby well and he's ready to go again? Or do you look at it sort of the opposite, where it's like, oh, well, we weren't really targeting this, but we're gonna perhaps run him in here anyway? Or am I just totally off base in thinking that there's anything to being sort of a late entry to the Belmont Stakes conversation?
No, I think you're spot on with the former. I think that the horse came out well. I think that once Mott saw the field and saw the numbers and saw how he shapes up, he felt he deserved a shot. And I did not include him in the Thoroughgraph show because I didn't know that he was running at that point. But I have looked at his numbers, and he's got on the numbers alone a hell of a lot better chance than Batten Down did.
Yeah,
Batten Down was a toss to me and was too slow. So I don't feel that way about Resilience at all. I think he's a much better prospect for the Belmont than Batten Down was. And I think you called it right. I think he's come out of the race well. I think he's looked it over and saw that he fits, and he's showing all the right signs, and they're in.
Yeah. I think he's definitely a strong exacta, trifecta, superfecta contender in the race. Definitely needs to be included underneath on those exotic tickets, in my view.
All right, now you're up there. So are you hearing anything or seeing anything about the latest workouts that's catching your eye or creating any kind of buzz?
Yeah, I think, we saw a bunch of horses work yesterday. Sierra Leone, Mystic Dan, um, Mind Frame. And, I don't know that there was any necessarily a standout. It's interesting because everybody and their mother becomes a workout expert ahead of the uh, Kentucky Derby. And then we don't hear anything about how horses are working in the morning until you have some, monster 2-year-old for Todd Pletcher or Chad Brown that's, tearing up the track in the mornings at Saratoga. And then we don't hear about morning workouts again until, leading into the Breeders' Cup. So not a ton of, wow workouts, I guess, from just chatter along the backside here at Saratoga. But, if you look at the times, I think one that stuck out to me was this Honor Marie at Churchill Downs. And, that's been what we've seen from this horse. All of his workouts have been in that 48 and change range for a half mile. And, I think this horse is coming in ready for a solid effort coming out of the Derby, where he got banged around at the start, had a pretty tough trip, and was still able to run on for eighth, I think. So just kind of looking at it for me, Honor Marie has been impressive from the workout standpoint. His last two breezes coming out of the Derby as he gets ready for the Belmont, and he breezed yesterday at Churchill, so I imagine he's probably gonna show up here today. I would think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I liked how Sierra Leone looked. I thought that was an excellent maintenance work. Wasn't necessarily fast, but it was more, how he looked doing it. Relatively easy outside of domestic spending, and just looked, looked like he's on go, and they just didn't want to do too much, just kind of like a maintenance move. And I kind of felt the same about Mind Frame, who didn't work fast, but certainly looked like he was ready and wanting to do more, and was kind of just playing with Protective, just kind of outclassing him at the end of that workout, I thought.
Yeah, and I think the quotes from Chad Brown and Todd Pletcher, really confirmed what you're saying. It's definitely a maintenance move from Sierra Leone. It sounded like Chad was very pleased with what he saw, and then Mind Frame pretty much just buried Protective. So I don't know what you make of that. I haven't listened to the Thoroughgraph show yet. I'm going to do that today, so I don't know what the numbers suggested on Mind Frame and Protective, but I guess if you're looking for tidbits of information, that workout probably tells you a lot about Protective and perhaps the chance, or maybe the lack of chance, that he has in the Belmont.
Yeah, and then the numbers do tell a lot when it comes to those two and some of the others. So it's definitely something worth watching. Um, and we've got two nice cards leading up to Saturday, don't we?
Yeah, we've got two really loaded fields. I thought for Thursday and Friday. I think the big thing that stuck out for me on Thursday, and there's two ways I think you can look at this. Ways and Means was entered in a allowance race on Thursday. Yeah, I think she's 2 to 5 on the morning line. It was digging through some Equibase stuff and that Race Lens product, which I've been really enjoying for the last month or so. Just another sort of tool in the toolkit, if you will. Gave her more like a 52% chance of winning the race, and just looking at it on paper, she's a standout there. And I texted you about this the other day, I guess yesterday, when the PPs came out, and my initial reaction to that was like, okay, why run in here when you could make the argument that she just didn't like the wet track in the Oaks at Churchill Downs, draw a line through it, and she's a legit contender in the Acorn. So a little concerning was my initial reaction, but you had a little bit of a different view for Ways and Means on Thursday.
Yeah, Chad's a friend, and I don't like to ask him things like this because I kind of keep the friendship separate from that side of the business. And that I'm like that. I don't like I don't like to ask certain questions, but I do know him well enough to know exactly what he's doing. And as soon as I saw it, the light bulb went off, and I'm like, I know what he's doing. I know that he ran the horse in Gulfstream because he wanted to get her into the Oaks, and he thought she deserved a shot into the Oaks. And, he put her in a really tough spot, and she had a horrendous trip, okay? Then she runs in the Oaks where she maybe didn't like the racetrack. And now, okay, what does he do with her? Could he have run her in the Acorn? Absolutely. But she's got test written all over her. In capital bold gold letters. So my thought immediately was the timing is perfect. Give her a confidence booster now after those two tough spots where things didn't really go her way at all. Hopefully she wins as expected and as advertised and is extremely impressive, gets her confidence back, gives him enough time to kind of sharpen her up and train her for the test. And if it plays out that way, going 7 furlongs on, what is the test on, Whitney Day? I think, it's on Whitney Day. It's relatively early in the meet.
Yeah.
I think that, she's a handful for that race, and that's the race he's going for with her. And then he'll decide whether he's going to try and, win the test and the Alabama, which I think is very possible with this filly, because I think she's really good and might be as good as any 3-year-old filly in the country. Just really has had a very up against it campaign and has still held her own and done very well. And I think he's just given her a chance to progress. And I love the spot and I love the move. Sometimes horses just need a confidence booster, in my opinion. And I think that's exactly what's happening on Thursday.
Yeah, it's an interesting sort of dynamic in how these trainers kind of prep their horses. Like there's been, countless examples over the last few years where you see these graded stakes runners, have a tough race. And, I think from a handicapper's perspective, we're relying largely on what we see in the past performance data. And we don't really have a ton of insights into the mentality of horses. And, I think what I've learned from just talking to trainers and bloodstock agents and whatever else over the years is, they operate a lot like humans do. Changing barns, a trainer switch could be, getting into a different environment could be what the horse needs to move forward. If they see a ton of horses passing them and beating them race after race after race, maybe they do get a little bit more timid and lack that confidence going into a race. And, we see it with, I think Sierra Leone is a good example of just a sort of alpha horse, when he's amongst other horses, he really turns into a dominant player, and just the horse himself just kind of bullies others around. Whereas, in certain instances where you're getting passed by horses, or you're getting bumped around and kind of folding, it tends to linger from race to race. So once you said that to me, at least that this struck you as more of a confidence boost than anything else. I think a lot of these examples start to come back in my mind, where the horses need certain things to get back to sort of peak performance, and a win, and finding a light spot for them to get that win is just another step along that path.
Agreed. Agreed. And I think there's a excellent shot that that's exactly what we'll see, happen on Thursday, and then in the test. So stay tuned.
I know you got the Godolphin hat on, so you're pretty high on a couple of their horses on Thursday and Friday.
Well, I'm high on the one on Friday. On the one on Thursday, not quite as much. I think that Shug's horse has kind of been crying for this crazy 2-mile marathon distance for a while, and I think he may jump up and give that horse the Godolphin runner as much as he really wants to handle.
How do you handicap a 2-mile race? Because I'm pretty sure this is the only isn't this the only one in North America?
Probably so, but I do get to watch my fair share in Europe, so you don't handle it really any other way other than I think that you have to use your eyes and your visuals a little bit more than you would in some other races, as opposed to really paying that close attention to the past performances. I mean, what makes me think that Shug's horse likes, or wants to go that route is how he's been finishing for the past 2 years. I've been watching him finish the past 2 years, and he just has that look like he's getting his lungs when everybody else are losing theirs. And a lot of times it's too late and the race is over. And he just never gets a chance to really, get into his best gear or best stride or best rhythm, because like you said, they don't run that long that often. So when I saw, him wind up in this race, I said, well, maybe there's a good chance that Shug is kind of seeing that the way that I'm seeing it. And that's certainly never a bad thing, because, Shug certainly knows how to win big races. So I have a feeling that horse can finish now at that distance. Now, does that mean he's going to be good enough to beat, a horse trying to win this race, 2 years in a row? And, not many horses can run this far, let alone win a race like this 2 years in a row. I don't know the answer to that, but I certainly think that at a nice price, he's definitely worth, looking at and considering based on my visual take of him.
Yeah, and I think in was there 12 or 13 horses in that race?
Yes.
On the turf, I think it's always wise to be, looking beyond the favorites, and seeing what could potentially shake out. But certainly a competitive field, I think, in there.
Definitely.
On Friday, we kind of touched on this a little bit at the beginning, and I was mostly curious how those stakes fields would shape up, just in terms of the number of runners first, and then the quality of them. And I think for the most part, the races delivered on Friday. We've got 9 in the Acorn, and I think Torpedo Anna, the likeliest of favorites there. but pretty competitive field. Just sort of my process. I'll probably be trying to beat her, perhaps. Uh, Probably the only thing that stuck out to me, maybe in a not so positive way, was just there's 5 Chad Brown horses in the Just a Game, and I don't know what you can necessarily do about that, but all of those horses deserve to be in there. Just makes it a little bit of a peculiar handicap when one trainer has 5 of the 7 runners in there.
It does. It creates a question. And I used to be, heavy much in favor of the entry 1A, 1X, and just let them all run together. With the field sizes today, I guess that's not as practical as it used to be. It certainly takes the guesswork out of, knowing a trainer's intentions and who might be, pointing for a different spot and needing a race, out of the equation. But it's a different game today, and that's not what's on the table. And it is what it is. You just got to kind of handicap it and play it, as it's dealt. But I'm very excited to see the race after that. I think it is the New York Stakes.
Yep.
England's Rose. One of the things that I look for, and I look for this a lot in tracking trips, and in all my personal handicapping, is sometimes a trouble line doesn't really appear as a trouble line. Okay. And if you watch England's Rose's race, to me, she was extremely uncomfortable behind that other horse and on the inside before she had some trouble. She was just in what I would call an uncomfortable spot that wasn't allowing her to really get into her, best rhythm and best race and have her best chance to win. She had to angle out. She had to wait for a seam. She didn't get it. She had to move to the outside, move back to the inside. And, she lost to an only speed that was allowed to gallop around the track at Keeneland. And she was finishing, in my opinion, excellent. Now, I had some reservations about her going into that race because I wasn't quite sure of some of the quality that she faced in Meydan at Dubai. But that was a quality field. She showed she belonged. I think with a different trip, she could have easily won that race. I don't worry about any Euro bounce or anything like that with Appleby and Godolphin. And I think she's a lawnmower on Friday in the New York Stakes. And that's a tough competitive field. I don't even know who's going to be the favorite. Maybe her. And it wouldn't surprise me if she's the favorite, especially now that we're bringing this to everybody's attention. But wouldn't be surprised if she's the favorite, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's the second or third choice either. I just couldn't get a read on it, and I don't think the morning line is out for Friday. But I think she's a lawnmower on Friday, and probably one of Godolphin's best chances over the weekend.
Yeah, I'll have to look a little bit closer at that race to start to formulate an opinion. But just a quick pass through it last night, can make a legitimate case for almost half that field. So
yeah, and I love that because I only like her, and I watched the replay twice. I remembered the race and I had my notes on the race, and then last night when we were doing this show, I watched the race twice, and each time I watched it, I liked it more than the time. I liked her more and liked the race more than the time before. So
yeah. Well, you figure Appleby, Buick, Godolphin. I think you'd probably be a little lucky to get third choice.
Yeah, and she may be the favorite, but and we've spoken about this. Let's say she's the favorite. That's okay. You know what I mean? I don't have to bet her to win. I could bet her in a cold exactor or a singular in a multi-race wager or something like that. You know what I mean? I'll find a way to create value before I'll bet against who I think is going to win. You know what I
Right.
mean? Which a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people say, well, I don't want her at 6-5. I'll only bet her if she's 3-1. If I think she's going to win, I'm not betting against who I think is going to win because, like I say, there's no value in a losing wager in my book.
Right.
I want to win. I don't want to lose.
Yeah. Like we said off the top, I think, we've got the Belmont Stakes draw tomorrow night. We've got the Met Mile draw tomorrow night. I'll be in the room for both of those. It's happening somewhere in Saratoga. I got to look and see, but somewhere downtown. What do you make of these, like events around these post position draws?
You want me to be honest?
Yeah, yeah,
Could care less.
yeah. They are a little bit goofy.
Care less. I've gone to the Breeders' Cup post position draw. I think the last 4 or 5 years, and I don't think I've ever made it beyond 2 races.
Yeah.
On my left. I go there and say hello to some people, kind of show my face, and you know what? I'm done. I'm out of here. There's almost always something better, or I'd rather be doing than watching them draw the races. I'll see it when it comes out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess for the Derby, like the 2 most interesting things is, who draws the 1 hole and who draws 20.
The Derby was fun when they used to let them pick. Remember they drew slots and you used to pick? That was a little interesting. You know what I mean? But, whatever creates a buzz, I'm not going to knock. Let them do it. You know what I mean? But, for me, just show me who's where when the post position the draw is over, and leave that for the real journalists.
Yeah,
because that ain't me.
Well, we'll be there tomorrow night, checking in with everybody, seeing, I don't know.
You do get some good tidbits. Like I remember at one, I can't remember what track it was at. It might have been at Santa Anita or Del Mar a couple of years ago, but I actually stayed for that one, and I did get some good interviews and talk to some people afterwards. That was the one where I messed up the Terry Finley interview, and I asked him a really good question about the flight line shares, and then I hit stop recording for his entire answer. So you got my question and him saying, and then the whole thing cut out. So rookie mistake. And I don't drink or smoke or anything, so we can't blame drugs or alcohol.
Do you, let's just say I think there's
I think you were there that year, and I told you about it. Weren't you there with me? And I told you, I showed up. I got a great interview with Terry Finley, unfortunately.
Yeah, I showed up a day or 2 after that. So
okay.
Yeah, nothing we could do about it, unfortunately.
Messed it up.
I think perhaps the most interesting thing will be the Met Mile draw. Outside of that, I don't know that the configuration and number of horses that are going to be running in these races at Saratoga, make a huge difference. But that Met Mile coming out of that Wilson chute, I think what we've seen in the last 2 years that they've been using it, post position probably does matter a bit more there than it does in other races, just given the way that chute kind of takes you up into that clubhouse turn and sweeps you around onto the backstretch. So I'll be interested to see where certain horses are slotted in that race. But, beyond that, I'm not sure the post draws really make much of a difference elsewhere.
I agree 100% with that statement. I'm not a fan of the Wilson chute. I think that, horse racing is tough enough. There are enough intangibles inherently built into the sport that when you start adding, what I call unfair or disadvantageous starting positions, really hurts a lot of horses in the draw. And I really don't think there's a reason for it. I know they want to run a mile at Saratoga. I'd have figured out another way to do it and build that shootout onto, what is it, Nelson Avenue, that abuts that.
Yeah.
I would have done something, because the town of Saratoga would let the racetrack do just about anything they wanted to do over there. They'd tear down a house if they had to build a chute. So I don't know. I just, I'm not a fan of that, and it's definitely going to impact the Met Mile. They're probably going to run the slowest Met Mile than they've run in who knows how long. What are they going to run it in? 135, 36, 37. Usually it's 33, 32. So, Sire's race, I don't think you want to mess with it like that. And if I had a horse that could win the Met Mile and I drew the outside, I'd have to seriously think about scratching. And there goes your shot to win the Met Mile. A Sire makes a race. And I'm like, I'm just not a fan of that Wilson shoot. I think it was a bad idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they can do much else though. That 7 furlong shoot starts on the street as it is.
Right. So, the simple solution was keep the Met Mile or move the Met Mile back to Memorial Day, which a lot of people were in favor of anyway. You still got enough stakes. So instead of having 6 grade ones, you'd have had 5.
Yeah.
Nobody would have lost any sleep over that. And you would have had a good day on Memorial Day instead of a basically, aqueduct winter card.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, maybe we see that next year. The Belmont will be back up here next year too. So we'll see what the response is to the Met Mile this year. And, if there's concerns from trainers, riders, perhaps it does end up getting switched.
Yeah. And what's the limit of horses that they run out of that Wilson shoot? There is a limit, right? Is it 8 or 10 or?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the limit is, because
there is a limit, though. Am I correct?
Yeah, because the normal starting gate here on the dirt is 14, I believe. So, and I know that they couldn't fit that many, so it is 8 or 10. But it just seems like we've never seen more than like 6 horses run out of there.
And I'll tell you something else. I'm not wild, even though they have an advantage, about the inside posts, because, you run straight down that turn and you make that sharp left onto the backstretch. A lot of times horses are like trying to get position or cutting over. So if you're not on the lead on the inside, you can wind up getting shuffled back further than you might have under different circumstances. So it's a tough configuration. Now, I will say this. A big credit to the New York jockey colony, because every jockey that I've spoke to about it or that I've had on the show and interviewed about it publicly, privately, have all said the same thing. The riders are very conscious of that and tend to be a lot more fair and a lot more giving and a lot less likely to crowd somebody or not give somebody room than they are on different configurations. And, that's a credit to them, so that helps, you know what I mean? You don't really see any, overly aggressive riding or crowding or hurting or shutting off on that turn. Everybody tries to be really careful and give everybody as fair a shot as they can. And that's a credit to those guys that are really, true professionals. And I'm the opposite of a lot of people when it comes to, rough race riding. I'm a fan of it, where most people criticize guys that really race ride. Irad gets a lot of criticism and people say he's dangerous and reckless and this and that. Well, if he was as dangerous as people say he was, there'd be a lot more incidents. Okay. And I grew up in an era where that type of riding was day in and day out. I mean, he's a choir boy next to Angel Cordero, who he learned from. You know what I mean? But I watched Angel win. I don't even know how many Saratoga titles in a row, and I can't even count how many races he won just by out riding, rough riding, and race riding people. And that was the norm back then. You know what I mean? He was not the only one that rode that way.
Irad's one of those guys. It's like you love him when he's on your horse, but you hate him when he, rolls out some of those tactics that beats your horse.
See, I'm different. I have a different take. My different take is when he does that to me, I hate the guy who's on my horse for letting him get away with it, not doing it to him. I don't hate him. I expect that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I'm like, why
Yeah.
ain't you giving it back to him, man?
Yeah. I think
some guys do. Some guys do.
When you and I were at the Breeders' Cup in 2022 at Keeneland, and we're standing there as they're loading for the Classic, and Irad's on Life is Good, and was it Pratt on Flightline?
Yes.
And you said, here's exactly how this race is going to play out. Life is Good is going to go out to the lead, and around that first turn, Irad is going to take Life is Good, 3-4 paths wide, and force Flightline into the middle of the backstretch. And that's exactly what happened. And he even drifted out a little bit further around the far turn, and making it as difficult as possible for Flightline. And of course, I think Life is Good finished off the board just from the having run so far, and Flightline ended up just being an absolute monster. But little things that you kind of pick up watching certain riders and their tactics, allow you to kind of envision how a race might unfold. And you were pretty spot on with that race.
And that just comes from years of watching race riding and stuff like that. And again, a lot of people criticize it, and I'm definitely not for anything that's unsafe. And there is a fine line there between aggressiveness and race riding and unsafe. But I'm of the minority opinion that, for the most part, he's aggressive, but I don't think he's overly dangerous. Yeah, sometimes things can happen. You could be hurting or taking somebody out or in or something like that, and trying to control 1,000-pound animal when you're only 115 or 116 pounds can be a little difficult to stop and move them, on a dime. But it's race riding.
Yeah.
It really is, and it's a part of the game I grew up. I grew up with. And he's not the most aggressive rider I've ever seen by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, like I said, we'll be at the draw for the Belmont and the Met Mile tomorrow night. Put together a little story with some quotes and stuff after that, and
it's a beautiful
thing. Coming out after that.
We got big race, Jim, at the biggest meet to date in the United States. I think we're going to give Royal Ascot a run for their money this year with this Belmont Festival. And there he is with Saratoga in the background, horses running by. As Marv Levy of the Buffalo Bills once said, where else would you rather be?
Yeah, I know. I wish I had another cup of coffee and a cigar. I would just turn the camera off and turn around and lean up on the rail and spend another couple hours here. But I'm all out of coffee and didn't pack the cigar. So
for all you people
I guess.
All you people out there that have never gone to the backside at Saratoga and been in that spot where Jim is right now, it's such a different perspective and great thing to experience about horse racing, and it just shows a completely different side of the game than we see on the front side and that we see on TV. And it shows, just how much a lot of people really love these horses and care for them and work with them and train them and their personalities and their quirks, and how much goes into getting a horse ready for a race, and why some people excel and some people don't. It just really shows the art and the beauty of this great sport when you watch it from exactly where you're standing right now. When there's no betting, no cheering, just watching, the animals and the people that work with them.
Yeah, during the summer, this is my favorite spot. You know, the Oklahoma track across the street has its charm and its history, and you know, all the bigger name trainers are over there. Chad Brown's over there, Bill Mott's over there, Pletcher, Christophe Clement is over there. But on this side, in the middle of the summer, the little track kitchen over there is buzzing. There's 150 people just hanging out, drinking coffee, eating breakfast, chopping it up with trainers and riders, and everybody's just kind of happy and hanging out back here, and the horses are moving around, and there's golf carts buzzing by, and there's just a lot of action on this side. A little bit more energy, whereas the Oklahoma track is a little bit more peaceful and serene in the mornings during the summer. This is where the action is, and I think, you know, you can see behind me, you don't really get a better backdrop. And I saw somebody post a picture of that first turn here at Saratoga. You know, you've got the little terrace club there underneath that red and white awning. You've got the new 1863 club building that they built, and I don't know. I mean, I'm a local up here and perhaps a little bit biased, but you see that iconic shot of the horses running around the first turn at the Derby with the twin spires in the background. A picture from the first turn here, I think, rivals that for, you know, the most picturesque first turn in racing, in my opinion.
I would tend to agree. I might be slightly biased as well, having spent every summer of my youth growing up there. It's kind of in my blood, Saratoga, but I would tend to agree with that. It's a very special place, even though it's changed a lot. It's you know, it's hallowed ground in horse racing, man. There's really no way around it. You could feel it when you get to the town.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll be here all week. So
yeah. What we got coming up? We got our Belmont seminar coming up. We've got you and Gio going to do a show running down the entire field. We'll have some other race previews. We'll have some more interviews. We'll be at the track every day. I think we've even got a seminar from Old Friends Farm coming up. A lot of stuff coming up. So stay tuned. Keep watching. Subscribe. Let us know what you want to see. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you think in the comments. And I guess that's a wrap, Jim.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. We'll be back tomorrow with a recap of the post position draws for the Belmont and the Met Mile. As Belmont week is underway.
All right, big race, Jim. Ciao for now.
All right, thanks, John.
In the 2023 First Crop Sires Race, Maximum Mischief makes the lead with the most 2-year-old maiden special winners by any sire. On the backstretch, Mitoli and Omaha Beach close the gap with stakes performers from coast to coast. Vino Rosso finds his best and leads on the turn with 4 Grade 1 colts on dirt. But it's Mitoli with his 3rd TDN Rising Star, your champion freshman, leading an impressive Spendthrift Superfecta.
With new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all 3 past performance formats. Go to drf.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Mini, a top 10 first crop sire in 2023, standing at McMahon of Saratoga. 14 first crop winners, including My Shady Lady, winner of the $500,000 New York Stallion Series 5th Avenue Stakes, Grade 2 winner, Winstock, and Stakes winner, Solo Shot. Solo Mini, the 7th leading freshman sire and the only top 10 freshman sire with a Grade 1 or Grade 2 winner. He sired a $700,000 2-year-old at the OBS April sale. His juveniles sold for nearly 6 figures on average. more than 12 times the stud fee. Solomini, a controversial DQ from being a Grade 1 winner by two-time Horse of the Year Curlin, standing at McMahon of Saratoga Thoroughbreds.
Sure Bet Coffee. Put the giddy up in your cup. Tracking trips with Pick 6 King John Stettin. It's one of the best tools in horse racing for any level of player. It's your second set of eyes, spotting troubled trips, betting angles, track trends, horses to watch and favorites to fade, 10 figs, ticket structure, and more. At Tracking Trips, you're a friend with benefits. Not a member? You must hate winning money. Join Tracking Trips now. Visit pastthewire.com and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Remember, nobody does it better.
Does it better.